Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 365. Yep, that's a live for every day of the year. Probably not for a year like this one that's a leap year, but for every day of a normal year, there's a live. And you can get those over on YouTube. You could head over to YouTube, Nathan Springer, over there on YouTube and catch all of those lives, any that you missed. If you are so interested, you could head over there and catch all of those mindful lives at Nathan Springer over on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. I'm streaming live right now on TikTok and on YouTube. We aren't on Instagram tonight, Instagram getting a little rest these days. So we're live. Once you're on the inside, hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on YouTube. Over there on TikTok, if you're wondering how to hit that like button on YouTube, just like it as usual. Hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok, drop a comment if you have something to say on YouTube. As usual, this is brought to you by Mindful Education. I don't always say it, but it always is brought to you by Mindful Education, the educational institution that I run. If you are interested in pod classes or private tutoring, hit us up. Tonight, as usual, unfortunately, we're talking crime. That seems to be nearly all the news. If you don't look carefully, it could feel like crime is all the news that you get. And as I say that, that's actually a perfect distraction. If you want to get conspiratorial down on that side, that's actually a perfect distraction. If you want to do other things inside of the country, to have crime as such a focal point, it becomes hard to focus on anything else. I remember watching an interview with this lady who escaped from North Korea, Kim. The name eludes me. The lady who escaped from North Korea. You all who are on the social media long enough, you all know her. Yeonmi, right? Yeonmi Park. And tinfoil kufi. I don't have the kufi right now, but I remember listening to an interview with her, and she was talking about in North Korea, part of the technique that is used to keep people under that level of tyranny is to keep them hungry, keep them desperate. When you're so desperate on things as rudimentary as hunger, you have no time to focus on other more sophisticated matters, like if there's corruption or if your leader is lying to you about everything that you witness. So there's that with the crime situation. But as I was saying, sometimes people talk about the mass shootings, the mass murders out there in the United States, and the guns that we have, the guns that they have, that legal guns they have. It's so scary because there are so many mass killings. People just walk into places and shoot up the whole place, and multiple people are dead. And bearing in mind those are 300 and something million people, we are 1.3, 1.4 million somewhere there. And we recently had a mass shooting. Well, it seems like nearly every day there's a mass shooting out here, but there was recently one where 9 people were shot. 9. The Prime Minister responded as he usually does in matters of crime as it pertains to these things. PM, TNT traumatized, laments gun culture. On the heels of the bloodbath in the capital city, both the Prime Minister and Police Commissioner have reiterated their vows to deal with gun violence in the country. And you see, part of the reason this upsets me so much is because I pay attention to, as I regularly talk about, I like to read news outside of that, outside of just Trinidad and Tobago, on a wider scope. And I recognize the term gun culture, the term gun violence was actually a political term. It's like it's like pro-life and pro-choice. Both of those terms are politically loaded terms. It's the discussion when most people talk about that, they're talking about for or against legal abortion. You could be pro-legal abortion, against legal abortion, but the terms pro-life and pro-choice, etc., they are loaded terms because they come with a political understanding behind them. And gun violence and gun crime and that kind of, those terms are similar. Because it seems to redirect the problem towards the gun. The problem here is the guns, and all we need to do, a real simple problem to solve, you know. All we need to do is get rid of the guns. That's all. That's all, you know. Good night, Rose Petal Angel Nick. All we need to do is get rid of the guns. And like, when you talk about gun culture in a country like Trinidad and Tobago, what gun culture are you talking about? Do Trinidadians grow up cleaning guns and, you know, practicing to dismantle and re-put together guns? Is that part of TNT culture? So this is a politically charged term when you talk about gun culture and gun violence. That's a politically charged term stolen wholesale from the Democrats. As I regularly say, our Prime Minister is a boomer Democrat. If you understand US politics, you understand our Prime Minister really well. He is a boomer Democrat. He is the kind of person who would have had the poster of Obama change inside of his home. He voted for Bill Clinton. You understand? That kind of guy. If you understand international US politics, you understand his perspectives on a lot of global stuff really well. The idea that guns are so scary. You cannot legalize guns while he's protected by guns day and night, but you cannot legalize guns. You'd allow too many guns inside of the society as 9 people are shot. Too many guns you would allow if you allow law-abiding citizens to have access. We can't have that. It's the gun culture. His policies only benefit the rich rowdies as conservative as they come. That is a simplistic understanding, Wide Leather, because go read the statistics and see who the wealthy support right now. See who the most billionaires and millionaires support in terms of politics. They don't support conservatism. They support, generally speaking, the left-wing side of politics. So to believe that old lie that was told that the conservatives are the old white rich men that are coming to get you, and you have Mark Zuckerberg and all of the modern billionaires pouring all their wealth into these political parties, convincing you that the poor farmers who don't want you involved in their lives are the real bad guys. Boy. And Dr. Rowley is not of that ilk. You see, you're not understanding the politics there. Dr. Rowley is extremely anti-gun. That's the point I'm getting at with that. The idea that you hear of these murders and where your focus is the guns. Somehow we have to get the guns off the streets because the guns are the problem. But interestingly enough, you know, we were talking about the SSA last week. And the guns, you know, the illegal guns, it seems, is the problem. SSA guns seized, sent for forensic testing. These are legal guns held by the law, the people who in our legal framework are allowed to hold the guns. You see, our system, it's only supposed to be the police and the bandits who have the guns. But there's a problem here when the line between police and bandit or police and criminal becomes very blurry. So then we are stuck in a system where the law-abiding are the only unarmed, and the police / criminals, you're not sure which is which, are armed around you. The TTPS has seized several guns from the Strategic Services Agency. Guardian Media was told by intelligence sources that the guns are expected to undergo forensic testing to see whether or not they were used in any murders now linked to the agency. You see, because they are now the hijack of the SSA. 3 murders linked to security agency probe. What they're asking, what was the shakeup at the SSA? It was, according to the Guardian Media, according to the investigative desk, it was the murder of Andy Daniel, 53, which alerted the government that it had lost control of the SSA, intelligence sources tell Guardian Media. Daniel, a private CCTV contractor, was the husband of a deputy director of intelligence. We went through this last week. The level of alleged malfeasance inside of the SSA. And you could ask yourself, if this is happening inside of the agency that is supposed to be our proxy to like the CIA/FBI, I suppose, do you think it's only there these things could happen? But no, according to Dr. Rowley, it's the guns. Hines laments murders of friends. Violence seems non-ending. And, you know, like, let me read this first. National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines has asked if the country will use the madness which occurred at Harp Place as a call for determined action, or if it will be business as usual. And you know, I find this kind of offensive. To be very honest with you, I find this kind of offensive. Let me tell you why. He is the Minister of National Security. All of this is directly under his purview. He's also the Member of Parliament for many of these affected areas. This is his political scope in all sense. He's responsible as line minister. He's responsible as MP. He's doubly responsible. And yet he's speaking like, you know, this is all so mysterious to me. Oh my goodness, the crime situation in this country is horrible. Will this country step up to where it needs to step up? But aren't you the person supposed to be doing this job? You know, the idea of politics, the idea of democratic politics, the idea that it's supposed to evoke is that we have problems arising in our society. We do not want to resort to violence to solve these problems. So what we do is we hire representatives to try and talk out these problems and come to reasonably resolved solutions. And we could put some of these into law, etc., etc. That's the political system. Now, every person in our political system, the way it's designed, is supposed to have a representative. Someone is supposed to be there to be able to carry your voice so that you don't need to get to violence. You don't need to be violent, because the thing that would bring you to violence, you are supposed to go to your political representative and with words that should be able to be resolved. So you personally don't need to resort to violence. Now, it's by default that if a constituency is violent, you are not representing them adequately. No, I don't even care about why they're violent. It's obvious. Whatever it is, you are not representing them politically adequately. If it is that they feel they should be able to stay home all day and get more money, you still haven't represented that to the public, and you are not representing them well. Why are your constituents resorting to violence? Why aren't you representing them? And that's even aside from the national security side. As he offered condolences to the loved ones of those affected by the violence, the National Security Minister said he knew 3 of the victims. He's a man of the people. If you know the victims, don't you know some of the perpetrators? Can't you figure out what it is causes the problem? Or is it that you are incapable of doing the job? And, you know, in that discussion, he went on to kind of blame some of the residents, as many people do. Hines knocks East Port of Spain residents. Where is outrage against gangs? National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines, in the wake of March the 16th deadly gang attack at Harp Place in Port of Spain, says there appears to be no community desire to stop gang warfare in the area. And I find these things so unfair. I find some of these statements so unfair, like when people say, and I understand this sentiment people get at, but I find it unfair. When you see the comments that people say, you wouldn't see any burning tires for this, they will burn tires if it was the police. Well, don't you want the police to expect something different? Don't you want the people to expect something different from the police than from the criminals? Do you want a community to have the same expectation of the gangs that they do of the police service? Because that seems to be what a lot of people are asking for. It is expected that criminals kill people. That's what the criminals do. You don't have to protest the criminal killing people because you already pay police because you don't like criminals killing people. We don't like criminals killing people, so we devote billions upon billions of dollars every year to try and get rid of that. So you don't need to wonder why people aren't protesting that. Of course they don't want the criminals killing people. But it should go without saying that the police shouldn't be killing people innocently. So of course that one would create more of an uproar. I don't even find that to be a major point. And with the history of what we just said, Mr. Hines being the representative for that area, Mr. Hines being the National Security Minister, Mr. Hines being in the cabinet that does not want more general law-abiding self-defense gun ownership. What does he want a community like that to do? He's saying, he's lamenting that it seems that the community doesn't want to turn away from this kind of thing and da-da-da-da. You're expecting this community that is overrun by gangs, that are able to maneuver through Port of Spain traffic and murder 5 people at a time. You are expecting me to do what exactly? What's the expectation there? That I'm supposed to go tell the police? When the spy agency in the police service allegedly had an elite killing squad that now they have to seize the weapons and check the ballistics for. What you mean the people don't want to stop the gangs? No entry. Harp Place residents ban outsiders after 5 killed. Residents of Harp Place in East Port of Spain yesterday placed barricades at all 3 entrances to the apartment complex following the killing of 5 men on Saturday morning. When the Express visited the scene yesterday, cones, broken chairs, and a large dustbin were seen at the entrances to the community, preventing easy access to the area. People were posted at the entrances to move the barricades for persons who are known to live there. So, obviously, the people don't want the gang activity like that to continue. They don't want people to be murdered. But what more you expect them to do beside throw dustbins and cones and old shopping trolleys in the driveway? What more do you expect them to do? What more can they do? And that's why I regularly make the comment that crime drives poverty, because the crime in these communities lock many of these communities into the distressed situation that they are in. It's not that the poverty per se made people into criminals, but the criminals that pester these areas make it very difficult to come out of poverty. You imagine if you had a home hairdressing something inside a Harp Place. You're using your little apartment inside a Harp Place to take home calls to come and do hairdressing. Anybody coming to do that now? And now your whole community looks more like a ghetto shanty town because you have a dustbin and an old trolley and a beat up cone thrown over the entrance. So you look even worse. Now self you look like the true ghetto. And it's not that poverty caused the crime. The crime is driving the area into poverty. And the member of parliament seems to blame them, while he is the minister in charge of eradicating crime. Imagine that, eh? Somebody asked me what I think about the horror house. Now, I spoke about that last week. So, you know, you could go to Nathan Spring on YouTube and check out the lives from last week. You would see what I said on that whole issue. I honestly don't know much more of what should be said or what could be said in that sense. It's a horror house. Those things that happen. I know many people want to and are trying to get at the wealthy angle and this only happened because they're wealthy, but I don't actually believe that's true, because there are horror houses where children live in horror and their parents are poor too, and it's not like the police readily barge in and shut down the entire thing. As I was saying last week, the treating of situations like that are very touchy. It's not exactly the most simple, straightforward thing to do. In order to have freedom for parents to raise their children, there basically exists freedom for parents to abuse their children. That's just the way it works. White Leather says Trini's purchase through TTPS Israeli spy app Pegasus monitors WhatsApp of noted individual Soviet-style spying on citizens. Yes. I remember we read about Pegasus a while back, but it's alleged that, you know, it's not that wide-reaching. It can't read every and anybody's. It can't read every and anybody's messages. So they say, but I don't know. That's what they say. Talking about Pegasus and things like that, high-tech eyes on crime roads. More 360-degree cameras coming. A new camera system is being installed along this country's roadways with the aim of tackling traffic congestion and reducing the country's crime. This was said yesterday by Minister of Works and Transport Ron Sinanan, who spoke with the media at the intersection of the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway and Golden Grove Road in Piaco. At the time, he was revealing the workings and reasoning behind the installation of new 360-degree video detection cameras, which are going to be placed along major traffic intersections across the country. These new cameras, which are above the ground, wait, what? These new cameras which are above the ground, they put cameras under the ground? Like, what do you mean by that? Or is he talking about like the sensors that are under the ground as opposed to these cameras that are above the ground. All right. These new cameras which are above the ground will be able to manage the traffic flows in this country. Previously, we had monitors beneath the surface on our road networks, and while it helped to an extent, it was not an ideal system for us. This is because it would be damaged by heavy vehicles and so forth. So what we decided to do was to move to an above ground camera system. So this is the new system where the entire intersection is being monitored above ground in real time. The cameras are 360 degrees, so it can see traffic from all directions and can aid with the changing of the lights, and the traffic signals can be synchronized. So the traffic signals between different points, let's say Piaco and Trin City, can be tied together. Sininan said, well, I know they tied together already. I know they tied together already, because if you get that red light at Piaco and you're heading west, know you're going to get all the other red lights. Just know that. They have to be synchronized. Dalip Jairam says, I saw cameras in Cedros, also Maruga strategic locations. And we were talking about this also last week when we were talking about the launch of the Eagle View or the Eagle Eye or something like that they called it out there in Tunapuna, where businessmen in the area spent $400 and something thousand to install a camera system that basically covers the majority of the business district, and the access to that is inside a room in the police station where they basically have 24/7 monitoring of the entire region through live camera access. And I was wondering, like, Trinidad is such a wealthy country. You're telling me $400,000 is what it costs for the business to do it in the Tunapuna region, and we don't have this in every single region? You see, when you see things like that, you recognize it's not really about ability, but about will. Do they want to do it more than can be? $200,000 price tag. Sininan noted that each unit had an average cost of about $200,000, and the cameras will be monitored at a main location in Caroni. However, he said that the technology also allowed wireless transmission, so persons who have access to the systems may be able to monitor the feed at other areas. Crime benefits a selected few. Well, crime benefits a lot of people, eh? It's just that some people get the maximum benefit. Like, there are some fools who get minimum benefit and engage in crime, but not seeming to not understand that they are part of a bigger system where they're fleecing themselves and their own relatives of the majority of the money and sending it further up the chain. So, like, you'd watch the wealthy people that take advantage of the crime situation and be like, they're advantageous. But then there are pests who are your neighbors who are facilitating the environment to allow that kind of advantage. This is the international standard, he says. This is not something we are choosing out of the blue. This technology has been used internationally, so it is something that has been tested. And of course, there are backups and it can be monitored. And if there are malfunctions, information is received by the main control center immediately. And things are being monitored in real time. This new system, which will be rolling out in Trinidad, will be monitored 24/7 from our traffic reinforcement center at Caroni. I just wonder how the upkeep is going to be. Crime is Trinidad and Tobago's largest economic driver, Positive Radiation says. Martin M says, what about privacy? Our Data Protection Act was never ratified. We have corrupt SSA. These can be abused. Well, of course they can be abused. But I suppose the privacy aspect may not be that significant when they're talking about major intersections. Like, you may not expect privacy at a major intersection. That's not exactly the area you're expecting to have the maximum levels of privacy. So many people may not be too much bothered by this at intersections. Now, when it gets to other places, yes, that may be an interesting conversation, especially as you note with the SSA being possibly infiltrated. You could wonder how much of people's private business would be easily accessed by nefarious actors. The Martin M, the balance Silent King says the balance between privacy and the prevention of crime has been mooted extensively. Privacy will always lose. Not always, but it often does. It's according to how violent the crime is, how scary the crime gets. Martin says, but how can the info be used? Privacy covers that as well. Or you mean in terms of if it can be used in a court of law? I don't think you have a right to privacy, as in if your car is braking a red light or if which direction your vehicle is headed in. I don't think you have I don't think your car has a right to privacy on the public road. Our banking info is supposed to be private. How come our honorable PM have access to this info? What banking info does the Prime Minister have access to exactly, Dalip Jairam? I'm not sure I follow. I'm not sure I follow that. In the case of something, it states it matters not how the evidence is brought before the court, whether it be by illegal means. I don't know. I don't know if that's correct. I may have to look at that because I'm pretty sure that's not actually correct. It may be a lot more nuanced than you're putting it there, because there are many cases thrown out because of the nature of the evidence and how it's brought. All right, he was talking about citizens have surplus in money, in cash sitting in the bank. Well, the central bank would have general information on how much money the banks have in it. So banks know your banking information. Banks know how much cash is deposited in their accounts, and the central bank would have that general information also. So it's not necessarily like he knows your intimate, private, personal banking details, but there would be some general knowledge on that. I mean, at the end of the day, the money, the cash that you have doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. That's why they could recall it and change it and issue some different ones as they see fit. So that's why your privacy as it pertains to your money is kind of not as much as you might think or might hope. We're heading over now to food security. Unprecedented hike in produce is coming, people. So says the news. I'm not bothered. My garden is producing well. Probably why the changing of the currency was pushed forward so quickly. See how. This is what the Agricultural Society is saying. Consumers across TNT will have to brace for severe hikes in the cost of local produce in the coming months as a mix of worrying challenges, including widespread predial larceny, intense heat waves, and major cultivation disruptions, threaten to drastically reduce supply. Contrary to the usual expectations of lower prices during the dry season, fueled by a glut of produce, this year tells a different story. A check with some of the country's markets showed that, for instance, tomatoes, which usually retail between $3 to $4 in the dry season, are now being sold between $10 to $12 per pound, and in some cases as much as $18 per pound, depending on where it is bought. To compound matters, there has been no surplus of goods such as dasheen, celery, hot peppers, lettuce, pak choy, cabbage, callaloo bush, etc. when compared to prices last year. And now all of this, that no surplus of dasheen, was just a perfect run-up into this story. Magistrate disgusted and angered as cops seize dasheen. Magistrate wants investigation as dasheen disappears. A magistrate on Friday said she was disgusted and angered that the amount of agricultural produce seized by police was not the amount available for return to the owner. Martin M says lower import duty and let us import. See how fast prices drop. Well, you see, if you do that in Trinidad, what you're basically going to do is make all of the farming in Trinidad seem a lot less appealing, and that entire agricultural industry that you would like to see rise in Trinidad will disappear. Now, I don't know if I'm necessarily wholesale against that. Maybe you free up the entire thing and allow the chips to land as they may, but understand what is going to happen. And I'm not sure if the PNM wants to be the party that looks like they're trying to take a knife to the farmers in Trinidad and Tobago. The PNM so much was willing to bribe the farmers that they gave them 2 acres VSEP and a housing lot when they closed down Carney, trying just to bribe that same demographic of people. So I highly doubt that the PNM is going to be the one that's going to do something to directly affect the farmers. Also, the PNM likes the status quo as it is. If you change some of the import duties, random little startup guys and nowhereans are going to start to import things. You aren't going to import only from the major distributors. And it seems to me, when looking at a lot of PNM policy, they have a kind of affinity to the status quo. So I don't see that they're going to do something to increase the competition to major distributors. That's very unlikely going to come from the PNM. So for those reasons, as true as that might be, if you lower import duties, I don't see it happening. The high prices are mostly price manipulation. Government can manage prices in this way. It's a tool. Well, price manipulation is supposed to be done by the vendors. That's a vendor's duty. They can manipulate the price. What you don't want is if there's a cartel that manipulates the price. That's what you don't want. I don't think that the farmers are a cartel. I don't think that's true. I don't think there's a cartel of farmers in Trinidad and Tobago. You could say that the farmers opportunistically raise their prices sometimes. So sometimes there might be a farmer who had no flooding. There was no flooding happening anywhere by him. His produce came normal. There was no struggle. But because he knows that he was one of the few that had a good crop, he's going to still raise his price like if he is struggling, and he's going to talk like if he's struggling while he's making bumper profits that year. That's true. But I mean, that's business at the same time. And I mean, we're going to complain about the farmers' prices and call that manipulation and want to lower the duties on that, but not talk about the prices of vehicles. We cornered into buying vehicles from the same people because they corner the market with duties and taxes. But no, the vehicle people could charge us 200, 300% profit and they could be millionaires, but God forbid a farmer make a couple thousand extra. Really? TCL, we would send up duties to the moon to make sure TCL controls the monopoly and remains in control of it. And send over those millions over to CMEX. The MEX in MEX stands for Mexico. Yeah, send it over to CMEX. But God forbid we allow Harry Lal and them to make a little extra something on the bygone. Nah, that can't happen. Import. I disagree with that, man. Like, if we were to engage in protectioneering, that's the primary place you should try. To me. Like, you don't protect importers from imports. You don't protect importers from other importers. No, if you all want to import, you all import together and compete for that. But if you're talking about local produce versus foreign imports, I could understand that argument better. To me, a more reasonable argument. However, the magistrate talking about the missing dasheen from the police. Magistrate Margaret Alert said it should be investigated, and while she did not mention such being done by the police, she made an appeal to Trinidad Express journalist Mark Besant to probe the matter. Well, look at that. Wayne Marchand and Courtney Granger were taken before the Princestown court for unlawful possession of bags of dasheen after police seized the produce from them on March 9th. The defense's case was that the men had 76 bags of dasheen and a $1,500 receipt for £5,000 of dasheen was presented. The men were represented by attorney Petronella Bastio. Marchand and Granger, both from Moruga, were stopped by officers while along Indian Walk, Moruga Road, Granger was driving. The police's information was that Marchand said the produce was from Venezuela, and this led to the opinion that it was stolen or unlawfully obtained. The officers said there were 55 bags of dasheen. The offense of unlawful possession of agricultural produce was laid by Constable Maurice Gervais. Marchand's evidence was that he purchased the dasheen from a farmer on March 8, and on his way to sell the produce, he was stopped by the police. Marchand did not have the invoice or the memorandum of sale with him when he was stopped, as it was left in the pants he wore when he made the purchase the previous day. The farmer from whom he made the purchase also testified. He said Marchand was a regular customer, and on that day, over 70 bags of dasheen were bought. Dalip Jairam says he know them fellas. While the prosecution spoke of a memorandum of sale, Alert clarified that although memorandum of sale books exist, it could also consist of important information written on a copybook page, including the date, the items purchased, and with whom the sale was conducted. At the end of the matter, Alert said she believed the defendants and dismissed the case against them. She ordered that the goods be returned to Marchand. She, however, added that she was disgusted and angered as to what has happened to the agricultural produce. She said there were originally over 70 bags of dasheen, but at last check, there were 30-something bags. She asked who had access to the produce between when the van the men occupied was stopped by the police to the present location of the bags of dasheen. Who are the persons who would have had access to this agricultural produce? I find this really disgusting and worthy of investigation by people who care, like Mark Bassant or people on that level. It's really disgusting, and this kind of thing has to stop. The magistrate said Marchand, a fisherman who would have invested in the dasheen after his time spent at sea. Bastio added that they were not aware of the present location of the bags of dasheen. And, you know, this is a very regular occurrence by police in this country, especially when dealing with poorer people. They go by poorer people, see something, and by the time that case reaches around to the court, whatever they seized disappeared. If they came in your house and seized cash, don't even bother about it. That's the level of honesty we have in our police service. Thiefing dasheen, all ain't shame, boy. Like, to me, this is the kind of thing I should be expecting all police officers around the country to be shaking all the branches to find out which police so low to steal, to thief dasheen from farmers. Nah, like, that man, all you can't be calling that man all your batch. That man can't be all your batch. Nah, man. You trying to tell me when I see your police with that big gold chain is stolen dasheen, pay for your gold chain? Nah, man, officers, man. Nah, man. Y'all supposed to... I want to see the police do their own internal investigation and throw out them dasheen thieves from the service. No way. You supposed to be knocking down doors with a man who will thief bags of dasheen from a farmer. That low. That is low. That real low. That's like the fellas in Orapun when they were robbing the garbage trucks. Garbage trucks couldn't drive through Orpun for a while because they were robbing the garbage trucks. Like, how low could you be? You mean the garbage truck man can't walk with a $10 to buy a drink on the way, boy? You go rob him? You're trying to tell me farmers have to be worried about police? The police come and you worried that they're going to steal some of your produce? Nah, man. And the amount that missing, somebody talk about curry duck and dashing. Like, listen, I think the way how Trinidad is, the nature of Trinidad, if one bag was missing and the police told the farmers that, boy, we take a bag and make a cook with a curry duck, the farmers would not even be worried about that. 50 bags missing means it's not that somebody took it and made a cook. Somebody took the man's investment and went and sold it for themselves. White Leather says we used to buy scratch rum from a police son. He used to seize and they used to sell. Well, yeah. That's a normal thing. So I remember somebody was saying a customs officer, after he seized a whole lot of some implement, he opened a store for it in San Fernando. There are lots of stories like that in Trinidad. Oh, good night, blessings, Vibesy. Superfunk says anytime we see police we have to call them dashing thief and shame all of them till they sell out who. Careful with that, because I believe insulting language could be a charge. Which I find is a ridiculous thing. I find it a ridiculous thing, but nonetheless it is. And you when you see charges like offensive language and resisting arrest as the charges and those kind of, you know, police be doing their thing out there. Like you can't arrest me for resisting arrest. What were you arresting me for first that I resisted? You understand? The arrest can't just be resisting arrest. You could just imagine the other things they take from people. Yes, there are many people who know and have experience with police stealing from them. It's a pretty common thing. Superfunk says, that in truth, getting charged for calling police dashing thief, that is not a real place. You might be surprised the things that could happen. But, you know, just a little aside on the on the police side, noting these things happen and the difficulty that the police themselves sometimes face too. Woman 62. I mean, it just starts wrong. Woman 62 charged after making false rape claims against cop. A 62-year-old woman from Arima who lodged a complaint against a policeman saying he forced her to have with him while in custody has been charged with wasting police time. On March 15th, the police arrested, and the thing is they give the woman a whole government name, You know, sometimes in cases like this, they don't give people's full name and all that. They give the lady full government name in this story. Of Cocorit Road after Police Standards Bureau officers investigated and found her claims were false. She was charged on March 16th with contravening Section 62 of the Criminal Law, yada yada yada. A police statement on March 17th said Ali Young went to the complaints division at the Maloney police station on September 19, 2023. She reported that she was arrested days earlier on September 15th and remained in custody until September 18th. Ali Young claimed that while in his cell at the Arima police station, a police officer who is a relative of someone she had an intimate relationship with came to see her. There, he allegedly forced her to perform certain acts on him. Her report was forwarded to PSB officers who began investigations. The day she made the report, she was taken to seek medical attention. Nothing she reported was seen when investigators viewed video footage obtained from the Arima police station. Tanti doing the most. Tanti doing the most. Now she got a chopped charge. Tanti doing the most out here. Ah. Hey. A story I want to go to. Something that I was following a while back. And I wanted to, long time I was asking about this. Long time I wanted to know what was the conclusion of this matter legally. Because I found this to be something that pertains to everyone in the country. And it was kinda in the vein of how many of our divisions and associations, etc., sometimes execute policies vice without any legal framework. They just decide they're going to do something. And I'm glad this one was addressed. Judge rules licensing authority policy unfair. The High Court has deemed unfair, illegal, and irrational a licensing authority policy to prevent transactions involving a vehicle until all traffic tickets issued to drivers are paid. In a written ruling, Justice Avison Quinlan Williams also held that the policy of stopping all transactions on a vehicle involved in a traffic offense once the traffic ticket remained unpaid was also unfair, illegal, and irrational. In a written ruling, she further ordered, the Transport Commissioner to pay $12,600 in compensation to auto body mechanic Neil Thomas, as she held that his right to use and enjoy the car he bought in 2022 and other constitutional rights were infringed because of the policy. Thomas had bought a car from a woman in July 2022 and went to the licensing authority's office on Wrightson Road, Port of Spain, to have it transferred. A licensing officer inspected the car and transferred it to Thomas. On February 13, 2023, Thomas received a fixed penalty traffic ticket from a traffic warden for using his cell phone while driving. He paid for that ticket. However, on March 14th, when he went to get his car inspected at a private garage, the inspector told him the online system showed there was an outstanding ticket and fine of $10,000 on his car, which must be paid before the car could be inspected. That ticket was issued to a man who had the previous owner's permission to drive the vehicle. Thomas was unable to pay that ticket because of financial constraints. The state conceded that Thomas was entitled to all but one of the reliefs he sought. Testifying before the judge was Transport Commissioner Clive Clark. He explained where a traffic violator does not pay the penalty or challenge the fixed penalty fine, the fixed penalty notice, a sanction is imposed on the vehicle after notice is given. Where the owner and driver are not the same, the cessation of all transactions is lifted either immediately or within 25 hours. In Thomas's case, the state accepted that the policy was incorrectly applied to him. It was for this reason the judge declared that the policy under which unpaid traffic tickets act as a legal charge or encumbrance on a vehicle was unfair, illegal, and irrational. Now, here's something very curious, right? The Transport Commissioner testified that they were not supposed to impose this fine on the man. So why this reached the court? If it was a mistake, shouldn't that have just been a hello? Do I have to pay this fine? Oh no, sorry, this is a mistake. We will change this. Click. How is it a mistake? And a whole court case went through. Ah. Willie Bang says lawyers have new vehicles to buy. I maintain, as I regularly see, government regularly seems like URP for lawyers. Like, if our government wasn't purposefully sending employment their way, we would need probably 1/8 the number of lawyers we have. Vibesy says the TTPS are better traffic wardens than crime fighters. That's why I maintain, Vibesy, that we should separate that duty. I maintain that we should leave traffic wardening for traffic wardens, and we should send the TTPS to focus mostly on criminal activity. I maintain that, because I believe that we lose more than we gain with the police doing that traffic warden duty. Most of the anger, distrust, malcontent that is built up between the police and the regular public in Trinidad happens on the roads, as the police act as traffic wardens. That buff up and rag up and unnecessary tripping smalls and taking thousands of dollars from people for small immaterial things that increase no one's harm or danger, it doesn't build trust. And I think, like, I mean, throw the traffic wardens under the bus, pay them to take that amount of hate, but allow the police to build some trust. Remove them from that duty. I've started calling police ticketers. I remember once I got a ticket, and I called the officers glorified tax collectors. They didn't seem very happy about that. I asked them, are you proud? When you go home and tell your children, are you proud of that? I was pretty upset about it. Are you proud of that? A glorified tax collector. Does that make you feel a sense of pride to go home and tell your son, I taxed the citizens today. I fleeced them good and proper to pay. They're testing to see if I'm a human. I tax the citizens good and proper to pay for government's bad spending. Proud. What was the infraction? Inspection. A vehicle was inspected up till 2022, and it was 2023 January, I believe. Believe it or not. They earn awards and ticket quotas, of course they're proud. I wouldn't be. That's not something that would give me pride at the end of the day. Like you aren't doing a duty to the country at that side. You're just fleecing people. I don't see how that should bring pride really in. But yeah, it's a mistake and it reached all the way to the court. Interesting. Oops, we're sorry, we weren't supposed to charge you that much. But still, let's fight this all the way in court till the end. The red man says the overtime the license officer's getting. I like to see a rundown on that. I don't know if you could. Shy Guy says my boy and me passing through St. James and he gets a ticket for his cell phone on his lap. Yeah. I remember a time I'm driving and my wife is in the passenger seat on the phone. A police passes me and then pulls me over a little while down, and he is insisting he saw me on the phone. I say, sir, you could look at the phone log and see it. It just so happened that there was another officer traveling in the vehicle with us, and the other officer said, nah, and he was like, well, yeah, go ahead. And I'm like, what kind of mad mad kind of gang life is this? I only get off because I have one of the gang members as an associate. This kind of mad people behavior. But regular stuff. As I said, I don't think that's a good use of police resources. I think police should stay away from traffic wardening. I don't think that's a good use. I don't think that's the ideal. When they tell me that 3-4 dozen police spent 2 days marching into a forest to burn down plants, things like that don't seem like a good use of police power and manpower to me. Willie Bang says, Toasty to ticket people like they getting commission for ticketing. Well, as somebody says, they do get awards for those tickets, so. And it's telling what some people would do if they're paid. Basically, if you're paid, you would rob your fellow citizen. I would advise anyone to install an external and internal dashcam. It's helpful in these times. Yes, I agree. It's helpful. Crimax says, not true. I believe he's talking about the awards for ticketing. Not true. That's what somebody said there. That's not me. Getting paid as constables but doing warden's work. Police love it. Less responsibility. I don't even know. I just find like if I was a police, I'd find that's a bad use of my training. You sent me in the barracks and trained me all this training to send me to stand up in the hot sun to just is you take and when you look at better managed countries that are better functioning, it's not that they ticket more of their citizens. You understand what I mean? It's not like the difference between our country and the countries that are better managed and better functioning are just 1,000 more tickets. If you ticket more Trinidadians, the country is going to get better. I don't actually think so. I don't believe the government thinks so. I don't even think the police think so. This is literally just fundraising for state purposes. That's what you're doing. And then they boast about that number at the end of the year. Like to me, that's like a parent boasting about the number of times they give their child licks. For those of us in that have been in my life long enough, you know, I'm not against corporal punishment. Parents, if you need to crack your child, I'm in the arm of the view, don't spare that rod at all. But I'm also of the view that you could believe in corporal punishment and never actually touch your child or hurt your child physically. Never give them licks. If they never deserve it, then they never get licks. It's like, as a parent, you're supposed to train your child so well that no one needs to give the child licks. It doesn't reach that point. Now, if you're telling me as a country that you're boasting every year that the entire country is so indisciplined on the roads that we got 30 million in traffic tickets off of them, that tells me that you're not informing your driving populace enough, or your road traffic laws are not in sync with your road traffic habits. Something is off about the laws versus the people. That's not a good boast. That's like the parents boasting, you know, every week this year I had a cause to quote him with some licks in it. Something is wrong with you. Some part in your talking to this child and teaching and disciplining this child is not working. The red man says, police stopped me, told me to pull to the side, then charged me for stopping in front of a bus stop sign. Then told me to contest it. Oh gosh. Hey. I find things like that. You're supposed to be able to get some kind of malicious malicious, not prosecution necessarily, but victimization from the police for that. That's ridiculous. Some parents actually do boast on how much blows pass. White Leather says Vibesy says it's only the task force do the heavy work, the rest only useful for crowd control and caution tapes. Oh gosh. I don't even believe that. And I think they are useful for more. Just they should be used for more. That's it. They should be used for more. Not that they aren't useful for more. Use them for more than just traffic wardening. Like, we have traffic wardens. Allow the traffic wardens that duty. And general, like, people talk about the dangers of that, but I don't think you're going to. Probably you have one officer stationed around a traffic warden to make sure if things get little gunnish that the officer is there. But generally speaking, you don't hear regular shootouts coming from traffic stops. Red man, you should have contest that, man. You should have contest that. You should not pay that one, man. That one was supposed to reach to the courts. Alright, people, that's all I have for now. Are there any questions or comments further inside of the live before I dive out? Let's look over on YouTube, see if there are any comments over on the YouTube. No, sometimes the YouTube is a bit left out. I know you could feel a bit left out. Hey, Roni says, good night, Kareem Delpesh. Good night, Roni. We've always been violent. Demand from who? His SSA? Haha. Lam says, good night. Good night to you, Lam. Why did they seize it in the first place? The Dashin, I suppose he was talking about, because of a lack of a receipt. They didn't see a receipt there, so they seized the man Dashin. All right, Miss Martin, the new DCP, what are your thoughts? I don't know her, Crimac, but Crimac, I am speaking as a person who just reads the news. As a person who reads the news, Crimac, I've said this before, but I found recently, it seems lots of the promotions in the TTPS seems strangely 50-50 female to male. I don't think that is possible on merit. I think if you are promoting on merit, it is literally impossible to get a 50-50 measure. And I find, reading some of the last few promotions, it could nearly seem a kind of 50-50 business. I don't know. I'm just talking as a news reader. Maybe it's just the articles I read, how they stated them or something like that. I don't know. Kermac, am I even lukewarm there, or is there nothing even close to that? No even report or whispers about anything anywhere close to that. I'm just off there. Nothing like that you've ever heard. I mean, you don't have to say all right, but let me know if there's a droplet of that kind of whisper hanging around there, because I find I noticed that. I found that something that I seem to have noticed. And if so, it connects with a few other things that seem very interesting currently in our police service. All right, thank you. That's enough for me, Kermac. No comment is enough for me. Connecting that to our link over with the Delaware National Guard for equity and all of that kind of business. And then with all of this happening, it seems like all of a sudden promotions have become too complicated for the police service to do now. Okay. Okay. I just don't think that a country with a rampant gang problem is the right place to play around with diversity in the police service. Anyway, people, have a good night. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. This has been the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Spring. I'll see you guys again for the next one, which is going to be tomorrow night, starting around that 9:30 p.m. time. Until then, people, stay well. Stay good. Thank you, Smithy. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. I'm out.